So again, thank you guys all for showing up today. There's a few other things going on, so I'm not quite sure who else is going to be stopping by, but might as well just get rolling with this. Again, please add yourself, as I say, as always, to the quick reports if you've got something to chat about, as well as just the attending list and things like that. As far as agenda items, there's still some good talks happening with the transform, so if you'd like to get involved, like Dieter was telling us before, they've had a lot of views, so some good stuff there. It's really good. I saw Thibault posted something in the meeting channel in the Slack a little bit earlier about a gravity processing one for tomorrow if you're interested in that kind of thing. There's just a bunch of stuff, so keep an eye out. They're still ongoing. With that, I think we can get into some.
Salvi, do you know how many people showed up for your talk yesterday?
I don't know, honestly, because I think the only way is just watching the YouTube views, I guess. It was what, 100 something, like 190, I don't know exactly. In the Slack room, there was about 40-ish people, I guess. Yeah. Dieter, like, do you get any analytics about that? How many people were there? And like, is that just watching number of views in the YouTube? Is that sort of the way?
I'll check, yeah. But it's interesting to see how much concurrent watched it and then later on. But that's the only real measure we have because there's no official need for sign up or anything. Let me check. But it was good, all smooth. I read there was a hiccup with the streaming in the beginning.
Yeah, a little bit. I think yeah, they figured out pretty quickly. So there was any, like, I don't know, noticeable problem on my end. I was surprised because I was actually finishing all year, so I was a little bit kind of stuck. Oh, I got 15 minutes, and I thought, okay, I just can end. That was the only problem.
Okay. So are there any other types of agenda items or things people would like to talk about before we go into some quick reports, at least things for afterwards? Okay. With that, I can kick us off with some quick report items here. So I've made a lot of progress on the boundary conditions. As far as writing, I've written tests that have PDE solutions actually converging properly with boundary conditions applied as well. So just for the different types of boundary conditions we've been dealing with, the simple Poisson problem right now. I'm finishing up tests on like EM-like problems, so curl equations, things like that in 2D and 3D. So just finishing up, and that should be shortly. I've got Poisson with boundary conditions for the cell-centered and nodal problems. Yeah, it works pretty well. It's nice. So as soon as that gets done, we should be able to make a lot of simplifications to the DC codes for the boundary.
I'm glad to hear that, Joe. Is that going to work for Octree and Quadtree code, Joe?
Yep. So it's tested on Octree. It's tested on Tensor, Octree, and the curvilinear meshes.
That's awesome.
And it was, I don't know what was going on. I was getting these really interesting, like, numerical error patterns that, like, they looked straight or like it was really odd, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but it was like numerical precision errors that were like correlated numerical precision errors. And it seemed like very interesting. but I had no idea why it was doing it. The other thing, so that should be in shortly, and we'll be able to get, as soon as that's in, we'll be able to move a lot of the 2D and 1D MT work that Lindsay and John and I had been working on into SimPEG, the ones that rely on the boundary conditions to drive the systems. So, and it'll be nice formulations for those. Yeah. The other thing is, again, is my reminder every week, please test out the D properties branch of Discretize. Dieter, I'm assuming you've been okay. Like that was the only, after you've had that one issue, that was all.
Yes, I'm totally happy with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep meaning to rerun all the tutorials, build the website from scratch to see if they all build properly.
Yeah, like it just, we'll let that in so we can get in the, so then we can do like all the NumPy and better structuring of the documentation, because kind of the prerequisite for that step to happen.
I guess, would it harm just trying and pushing it out and otherwise release a fix? What do you think is the worst that could go bad?
I mean, the worst thing is it just breaks stuff and then we fix it. If it forces people to try it out, then probably okay. I don't know.
I mean, I've made similar suggestions for things, and people we're not for it. The idea of getting things to people so they can try it out, and if there is a little bug, just fixing it really, really quickly. It seemed like that did not align with our philosophy.
That's true, but he's trying to push it since many weeks.
Would it work, Devin, would you have time to rerun both the Discretize and the SimPEG documentation builds? Because if both of those build, that's if they both build sort of error-free, that seems like a reasonably robust, well, a reasonable test.
Well, it's like, I know all the Discretize stuff passes because it passes its tests, like everything runs on the testing.
Yeah.
So.
And if all of the SimPEG stuff also runs, I don't know if anybody's tested that, but if the SimPEG documentation builds with that.
And all tests pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. My only.
Yeah, hopefully I can get to it in the next couple days.
Okay. Yeah, my only real concerns about it at this point is that I'm missing some edge cases as far as like the way people have initialized things, or possibly how people are bringing in like deserialization, like serialization and deserialization. I'm probably missed a few edge cases with that. Those are the only things that I think might have issues with. Everything else should be is fine. Everything else should be just fine. But those are the only things that I'm really concerned about.
I mean, if like the problem I run into, anyone will run into this anyway, unless he tries it. Let's say someone is using Discretize we don't know, and he had a class set up like I did. This will pop up. There's nothing you can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I like your perfection kind of, but as long as a test is passing, then I think you've done your job, I guess. So because that's their problem. Like if they really wanted to be updated, they should have put the test about that in the SimPEG and make sure, because then I think as long as the test is passing, I think that's not, I guess, your problem, Joe. Maybe their problem or my problem.
Yeah, let's just make sure that all the SimPEG tests pass at least before we merge in the Discretize stuff. Okay, then. I think that'd probably be the best step forward with that. That's about all I've got then. Lindsay, we got a decent amount there to chat through, I'd imagine.
I copied in a couple emails. But Joe, did you want to go over the poster? I dropped the links
Sure.
in there, but you're welcome to share
You can
that.
kind of fine-tune it. We're on the hook for an EAG poster next week on a session. It's kind of like open source building, open source communication, open source science, inversion, stuff like that. So we're putting together a poster and geophysical inversions with SimPEG, like kind of really broad, just introducing SimPEG to this group of people, as far as I understand it. We're wanting to have examples like like the Myanmar example. We thought would be a good one to put in there. Mining examples would probably be nice, because one of the things that they're trying to do is also help connect like EU and Russia scientists. That's one of the other topics of this session. Like promote open source communication, or promote communication between those two entities. So that's one of the reasons. So Lindsay brought up mining example as far as the Russian contingency, and then possibly some other real world examples. I'm not sure what else, if anyone has any other thoughts to add to that, as far as what would be good to showcase.
So can you elaborate a little bit more why mining sort of is an important example to connect EU, like the European countries and Russia? I'm just not getting it.
I mean, I know there's like a decent amount of historical mining, like especially like electrical EM methods that were developed in Russia for mining purposes, right? I don't know, Lindsay, what was your thoughts on including mining for that purpose?
Well, so the Myanmar work includes a nice example of humanitarian geophysics, shows the DC resistivity. We can show the octree code a bit. And then I think we're pretty open on sort of ideas for a second example, but what it would be nice to show is something that's relevant to this audience. Something that shows off a bit more complex physics. So if we show the DC resistivity problem, it would be nice to show either something EM or to show something like the MVI work that's a bit more of an involved inverse problem. Something that like hints at this is also, you know, a compelling research tool. Yeah, so don't have like strong opinions on what that second example would be, but I think having two that kind of have different applications and also use different physics would be nice to show. So I don't know if others have thoughts on like what you see as sort of a compelling use of SimPEG that you'd want to show off to this community.
Well, I mean, right now, just with getting the static utils stuff almost ready, it's kind of at a point where I think it's more versatile to use. So I'd like to promote that because it's cleaned up and you can do a lot of good stuff with it. The 3D pseudosection plot, converting 3D surveys to 2D slices. I think there's a lot of stuff that we could do there, and I've tried iteratively reweighted least squares on these inversions. So there's some fancy stuff we can do, and then there's some practical workflow type stuff that we could show off as well.
Lindsay, can you elaborate a little bit more for the audience here? Because Joe was talking about European countries and Russia. Yeah, I was just kind of curious who's our target audience?
Yeah, so it's Sarah Gare who invited us. And so I put in the notes here, the session description is I've linked it. Let me just copy that for you. But the session is called Breaking the Barriers, and it's kind of about open source projects, open data, and like the role of these in sort of promoting collaborations. And this event specifically is sort of targeted at helping facilitate collaborations between researchers both in the EU and in Russia. That's sort of the target audiences. But I mean, we're also a broad, diverse project, and not necessarily everyone's in the EU or Russia, and that's fine. I think we've got some perspective to offer on, collaborative projects. So I think really the role of the poster, we want to show off some of the capabilities, but also like really it's something to talk around and sort of prompt discussion with folks who are doing sort of environmental near surface geophysics. And so, Devin, to your point, what I would potentially see is like, I think the Myanmar work is a great sort of jumping off point for discussions about the DC capabilities and things like that. So we might not necessarily go into like a big list of what is currently possible, but if somebody starts asking about that, it's great that we can, use that as a bit of a jumping off point for conversation. And actually anyone's welcome to join. This is a free event. So if anyone wants to come, you're totally welcome to, and it'd be great to have a number of people there. It's on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so you really want to tie it to a practical application, get something that's very easy to step into and understand the purpose, and then kind of demonstrate how this is a solution. Yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So also, I mean, Sagi, if you wanted to show off some of your airborne EM work, that's also totally, we could use the second example for that. I think it's pretty flexible. So it's basically, if there's anyone here who wants to highlight some recent work, we should definitely use this as a chance to do that.
Lindsay, are you going to demo? Is that like or just a static poster?
Just a static poster.
Oh, I see.
We can point to things that people could go and follow up on. So we could definitely point, and it's probably a good thing to point to both the transform talks and the MNRs maybe as well. But yeah, it's just a static poster.
Maybe to your question, so I never heard of that event, which is interesting, because I'm always getting news from the local chapter EAG, and I've not seen anything so far, which is a bit weird. But so it's a Russian-European workshop. I guess that's where these things are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So conveners search for topics that they can fit into this workshop. Yeah, Russian-European.
Do you know a lot of mining sort of studies, like a mining geophysics in Russia? I actually haven't heard that much.
In Russia, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Russia has a huge amount of mining, Europe less so, actually, not anymore.
Yeah, that's what I recognize.
Yeah, but Russia, historically has had a lot of mining. The minerals are still really important to them. And they did a lot of the formative, mathematics and physics that's associated with what we consider to be sort of standard geophysical techniques. And so I would think that a mining related example would go well with them, but any electromagnetic experiment is also kind of connected with mining. So kind of depending upon which way you want to go, I think that would fly.
Okay. Well, we'll work on making a little bit of progress there, but if anyone has examples, or as you're thinking about this, if you want to drop some thoughts into that slide, the slide is linked, and then we can share a bit of a draft for folks to provide input. And too, if anyone wants to add your name as a co-author and plan to be there, please do. It's not a fixed list. Cool. Okay, a couple other things. So I've started making a bit of progress on the governance document. It's still a work in progress. I would say it's not worth spending your time on it right now, but just I put it there. So if you would like to see the state of it, you certainly can. I'll ping when it's actually worth taking a read through when we've got sort of a full draft, and we'll do that as a pull request. And we can walk through, if folks are unfamiliar with how to leave comments and things like that in a pull request, if you've got suggested changes for the language or questions or anything like that. So that'll be, I think, the way we can do a bit of a review process. There's one issue I would appreciate input on. It's very simple, but for this community repository, we've got a blend of Markdown documents and RST documents, and I think we should pick one. And so feel free to add your thoughts there. I would vote we go with Markdown, but take a look, and if you have other thoughts, that's fine. But I think for our to keep things simple, it would be nice to just work with one or the other. Okay, then there's two other things that are more announcements, and I copied in a huge chunk of text just because these are emails and I couldn't find like a public URL for them. So there's two things I wanted to flag. The first is with MTNet. It sounds like they're going to do another one of these MT challenges with forward modeling and inversion to be held with an event on November 8th to 12th. And so I think it would be awesome if we got in on that and sort of show some SimPEG examples. And I think, you know, the fact that we've pushed so hard on the MT code recently, it would be really nice to be able to come to this workshop and show something reasonably compelling and kind of, yeah, have a seat at the table there. So that's going to be November 8th to 12th. I don't know if there's any action we need to take at this point, but mostly what I wanted to just flag is like put this on people's radar and see if there is enough interest from folks in the group that if this is something we want to kind of collectively take on.
It's probably, so you think it's all going to be stable enough by November? Because I think most codes will be very stable MT codes, right? So it could be a very harsh environment. I don't know.
Potentially, but I think that they do also
but then it's MT, it's a very friendly community, so yeah.
Yeah,
it's fine. I would, yeah, it's probably not CSEM, which would maybe be a bit different.
I think this would be really valuable to shoot for, and the MT community right from the get-go has had a lot of these challenges to mostly driven by Alan Jones, just to try to see what codes are working, and having test examples. I've been to a couple of these. Are really illuminating, because people are kind of sitting back and they're saying, "Oh, didn't realize that," or how do we actually work with this? So it's a very, very good learning experience, as well as the fact that you pick up a lot of tips from what other people have done. And if you've got something that's being developed, in the open source, that is going to be extremely appreciated. So I think this is a great opportunity, and yeah, I really encourage involvement. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be showcased, be good, and this is where we're going.
Yeah, I think it'd be something to get involved with as well. Be a good test of the code as soon as it should be shortly. It's like I said, once the boundary condition stuff comes in, once we get the other stuff in, it's in a pretty good spot, I think, to shoot for this as a testing example and to showcase what we've been doing with it.
excellent. Well, I'll make sure to keep these emails on the radar, and I don't know if the models have been distributed yet, but when stuff comes out, we can get working on that, and maybe even start a dedicated channel in Slack for anyone who wants to participate. And because it would be great if multiple people run simulations and inversions, in a sense, kind of, Dieter, like what we did with the CSEM case. Even if we're using the same code, people will choose different mesh designs and stuff like this. So I think it would be a fun exercise. And
it's actually, because you mentioned the comparison, I will write it afterwards in the channel, because Raphael Rochlitz also added MT capabilities to custom. So he might also be interested in participating.
What's the prize?
Pride and
Fame.
glory.
Fame, Soggy. until 4 years later, when there's another one, and you might lose your pedestal.
So it's like football champion, world champion. So you
Well,
have
that
to
sounds
train
like
for
a
4
great
years.
motivation for us.
Absolutely. Okay, then the last large email that I have copied a chunk in is there's this Cooperate EM group, and I linked the title to the website, and there might be more info on there. I didn't actually look yet. They've got a Slack channel, and right now it's kind of an email list of just folks who do electromagnetics. They've been running seminars. I haven't attended many of them recently or yet at all, but they've been running seminars, and there's one that came by that I think looks quite relevant, and it would be great if there's 1 or 2 of us from the community who are from the SimPEG space who are able to go. So it's going to be a meeting on May 20th that'll focus on marine EM. And Steve Constable is going to give a bit of an overview of the Scripps instrumentation. And then they're basically going to do a bit of a roundtable of folks who are doing stuff with marine EM who have either funded projects or projects in mind that want to do marine EM and figure out kind of how to work together on things like that. So I don't necessarily have a specific project in mind. Others here might, but even if not, I think that it would be worthwhile if a few of us could try and be there. So if you want to attend, just feel free to ping me on Slack, and I will loop you in and forward that email to you so that you can get a hold of Chloe, who's the one who's organizing all of this. So that is it from me.
Talking about scripts, did anyone watch Carrie Key today? 3 hours ago in the seminars?
No.
I couldn't, but I have to. Could be interesting. He probably also shows some MT stuff with his Mare 2DM.
Is there any other quick report people would like to bring up? That's all that's listed on the meeting notes for today so far.
My background is pretty noisy, I guess. Somebody's cleaning. I kind of, well, not really a hackathon, but I sort of created a small hackathon with Peter. So we're trying to bringing in the EMG3D into SimPEG. So the task up to by this weekend was developing that J vector product in EMG3D. So far, I am at the stage I tested Dieter's JT back, and that is passing our second order. So that's good. And I'm just gonna modify his JVac function into a JTVac function into a JVac, and yeah, hopefully we can bring that in. Like once that passes, it's just mechanistical things to just bringing into SimPEG. So yeah, it'll be kind of fun to actually run the Marinium inversion in SimPEG. So yeah, that's where I am. And what's actually interesting that I have found, so what we're doing in terms of JVac and JTVac, we are first discretizing, then take the derivative. But sort of what Dieter is doing is more traditional approach. You start from continuous derivation of the adjoint state and then discretize. So there is actually an advantage, which is a bit of detail. So anybody want to talk, I'm happy to talk. And also that kind of brings a bit of accuracy, like a efficiency improvement that we can make in the SimPEG code. So yeah, anyway, that was kind of fun. So I just wanted to let you guys know.
Cool. It sounds like it'll be interesting to see when it comes together. That'll be good. Okay. Is there anyone else? If not, I think that's Unless anyone has anything else to share before the meeting, I think that's about all we've got for today. Okay, hearing no objection. With that, I'll say goodbye to everyone and hope to see you next week soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
guys.
Guys.